Hello everyone, this is Ash and Simon from our Corona retreat here in Bonn, Germany, and we are here back with another Battleground era overview for Vampire the Masquerade Heritage.
That's right. In this video we are starting on Era 4. If you haven't seen any of the other Era overview videos, you might want to go back and watch them. And in this era, the 16th and 17th centuries, the Masquerade in Vampire the Masquerade comes into play.
Right, so let's check out what that is all about.
As I said before, this is the Masquerade in Vampire the Masquerade, which is a global conspiracy that vampires uphold to keep knowledge of vampires hidden from the mortal world. And this, of course, is something that has to be implemented as the rise of humanity and the growing power of humans means that they become a threat to vampires.
Right, so if you remember the last time we were talking about the Anarch Revolt, and that was because of all of the young vampires being sacrificed and them being unhappy with that. And this ends with the Convention of Thorns at the end of the 15th century, where the Anarch Revolt ends and the Camarilla is instituted. And of course, the Camarilla is the organization that's going to uphold the Masquerade and punish every vampire who reveals too much of vampiric existence to the humans.
Right, so in this battleground we will be traveling around Europe, doing vampiric sort of shenanigans, trying not to breach the Masquerade, and then punishing those who do breach the Masquerade. As always, every player, every turn will have to recruit a character into their bloodline. When we do that, the character is going to impact every one of the battlegrounds in play. So in the case of the Masquerade, we look at the third attribute, the geographic gem, to see where the character's from. In this case, the plunder is from the north, so an investigator in that area is going to get a little bit more suspicious and move closer to the truth.
And at some points in the game, when you recruit a new character, like this, you will actually move that suspicion marker over the threshold and cause a breach in the Masquerade. Now, if you do that, you're going to reset that track, but you're also going to move one of those ankhs on the character who made the breach.
That's right. Now, this has done two things. One, it's moved one of these ankh pieces onto a character, and it's also reduced the number of ankhs in the final place for that color, for that region. So at the end of the game, you're going to score, every color is going to score, and you're going to score points equal to how well they have protected the Masquerade in that area. So at the moment, the southern vampires are the only ones who've sort of dropped the ball. So you'll only score 2 points for every southern vampire in your bloodline. Now, as this keeps going on, and they're keeping more breaches of the Masquerade, these numbers are going to be reduced until we have some areas which have managed to uphold the Masquerade, which you'll score points for, and more areas where they haven't managed to uphold the Masquerade.
Right. There's a number of ways to influence the Masquerade. One of them is, of course, again, the battleground scheme, which in this case will allow you to send out a coterie and discard any of the tokens, basically cleaning up a region and cleaning up the breaches in a region. But you can also take more direct action by simply looking at one of these perpetrators who was careless enough to breach the Masquerade and placing them into torpor. Now, if you place a character into torpor who has breached the Masquerade, you're going to restore the Masquerade in that region by returning the cube. And you're also going to gain power for restoring the order.
That's right. So in the previous game, the wooden ankhs were a sign that you were upholding the Camarilla in this region. In this case, we're going to use, it's still the Camarilla ankh, but it shows that you've been marked by the Camarilla for breaching the Masquerade. And so it's putting a target.
What is the strategy that you can apply when dealing with a Masquerade? Now, obviously, if you're a clan that's very good at hunting other vampires, what you can do is look for those vampires that have breached the Masquerade and try to hunt them down to gain the power. And if this aligns with a region, where your bloodline is concentrated, then that can be doubly beneficial, right? Because you're gaining points directly, but you're also improving your chance to gain points in the end game.
Yeah, plus you're torturing other people, which is always fun. But this sort of brings up the real twist, I think, in this battleground, which is that the color that you have, the color that you keep recruiting, in doing that, you're probably weakening the position of that color. So what you don't want to do, if somebody invests in the north, is to go around staking vampires, causing trouble in the north, because you're potentially giving them even more points than you get just from the power.
One thing to consider here is multicolor characters, because multicolor characters have the potential to cause trouble in the region without actually being affected scoring-wise. The way this works in this battleground is you can actually use a multicolor character to move up a suspicion marker 2 spaces.
Right, and this can cause trouble. Ideally, what you want to do is sort of lay traps for other players. You want to move these suspicious models right up to the point there's the breach in the Masquerade, and let somebody else sort of bumble into that.
You want to set them up to breach the Masquerade, but the closer you get to the end point of the game, the more sense it might make to actually go for it yourself, even if you put a target on your back, because you're just going to take the points away from them.
Yeah, and ultimately, if nobody kills you for breaching the Masquerade, it doesn't matter. You're not actually hurting your position unless somebody can punish you for it. Another feature that's really cool, I think, is that it can sometimes be beneficial to stake characters in your own bloodline. And
right.
There are certain vampires that will stake vampires in your bloodline, and you still collect the bounty. So I really like it's sort of a thematic thing, sort of a strategic thing, that your relationship again with the people in your bloodline is not like paternalistic, or you're not looking out for them. You are using them for your own ends. So that's something that can happen quite a lot. If you send somebody into Paris and they cause a mess, you might clean up that mess yourself.
Right, especially if that's an infamous vampire that's going to get you minus
right,
points.
Exactly, yeah, and that's how
ways.
you're able to kill them. Yeah, so there's lots of really fun things going on in the Masquerade. I really love this battleground. And that wraps up our overview of the battleground, the Masquerade, that comes into play in the 4th era. One thing I always like to mention there is that, as always, there's 3 battlegrounds in play. So at the same time as you're dealing with this, you've got to make sure that the Beast Within stays within, and you also have the Inquisition, which can be a weakness or a very useful tool if you're trying to stake people who are breaching the Masquerade.
Right. If you're interested in more Vampire the Masquerade heritage stuff, you can check out the other videos on the channel. You can subscribe. There'll be more on the further eras, more on other stuff of the game. And yeah, see you next time.